Hello and welcome. My name is Cindy Pavasic and you are joining me on Balance and Bounce today on Cape Town TV. I will be chatting to Vusumzi, and I better get this right, Landu, and not only are we celebrating World AIDS Day, we are also celebrating the festive season. And I hope that you are going to be extremely interested in what we have to say, because we are discussing the rights in the workplace along with the Senior Commissioner from the CCMA. Vusumzi, I'm going to just briefly give you a little introduction, or if you would do it for me, I'd be even more appreciative, because we are going to go into an insert which we did through LabourNet, and before we actually get into that, I would like to just let the people know who you are.
Thanks, Cindy, for having us on this occasion of us celebrating the 23rd anniversary since the inception of the CCMA. As you correctly pointed out, my name is Vusumzi and the surname is Landu, but you can call me Vusi.
Thank you.
I'm the Senior Commissioner of the CCMA in the Western Cape, part of the management of the CCMA, responsible for the affairs of the CCMA in this region.
Okay, that's absolutely wonderful. I'm seriously interested in hearing what the situation is in our country, because I know we do have a lot of issues,
yes.
And it's going to be very interesting to discuss it. We are going to go off to an insert that I spoke to Ryan from LabourNet recently, and he had some pretty serious comments that he passed on issues that surround HIV and AIDS and the rights of people in the workplace. Hi Ryan, I'd just like to know, we're here at LabourNet, and if you could just give us a little intro about what LabourNet is all about.
Yeah, sure. So the banner's in the background. LabourNet is an industrial relations, HR, labour law consultancy. So we provide HR and labour assistance to a number of our clients, basically advising them on labour legislation, best practices when it comes to HR, and generally just providing assistance when it comes to any employee-related matter.
Okay, fantastic. One of the things that always crop up when I have people coming to me is, can I get fired if I'm HIV positive? What is your take on that?
Well, it's an unequivocal no, but there is a little bit more to it. So in terms of being fired for your HIV status, it's a big no-no. The Labour Relations Act as well as the Employment Equity Act provide quite protective statutes and very protective measures in place, strictly prohibiting any employee from being dismissed for their status, for being HIV positive. Where things do become a little bit more tricky is when the HIV and AIDS becomes full-blown AIDS, and it starts to have a very significant adverse effect on the individual's health, and their health deteriorates to such a point that they can no longer fulfill their job requirements.
Okay.
And that's where companies are able to intervene. And from an operations point of view, we'd be able to embark on what we refer to as an incapacity process,
Okay.
which, long story short, can result in a dismissal. But the straightforward answer is you definitely cannot dismiss, and they take it a step further. You can't discriminate against or expose an employee to any occupational detriment as a result of their status.
Okay, so it wouldn't affect promotion or anything like that at all?
It shouldn't, no, definitely not.
Okay,
Promotions, appointments,
Okay.
training opportunities, definitely no.
Okay, great. And is an employer required to disclose their status when they initially get employed by somebody, if they are HIV positive prior to being employed?
No.
In certain instances, perhaps? Where
No,
there's-
so what in an employment context, and specifically in a recruitment context, employers and companies are restricted to asking inherent job questions relating to inherent job requirements.
Right.
Being HIV positive has nothing to do with the job. Many cases have been thrown about the courts where employers have challenged HIV status to be an inherent job requirement, and to date the courts have not once found in any company's favour in terms of prohibiting employment opportunities, in terms of restricting employment opportunities for anybody with HIV.
Here in South Africa, we have actually had issues where people have not been employed because of their status.
Oh, there's been plenty.
Really?
Plenty. Yeah. Look, it's. I think you know more than most that it is. It's quite a sensitive topic. There's a lot of misunderstanding regarding the illness, and a lot of companies out there that are practicing very naive and outdated practices. And have got themselves into trouble in terms of discriminating.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that insert from LabourNet that I spoke to Ryan about. And now I would like to introduce you properly to Mr. Vusumzi, and I get this wrong every single time, Landu from the CCMA. Welcome and thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Cindy.
I would like to just get a bit of a background on what your role is within the CCMA. Would you like to just share that with us, please?
First and foremost, I am the commissioner of the CCMA, which is responsible for doing the day-to-day work of the CCMA, like doing cases, but I'm also part of the management staff of the CCMA, which makes sure that the office runs efficiently in the province or in the region, as we call it. So I'm also doing some conciliation, arbitration, and mediation processes.
Okay, and your background initially, where you started off before coming to the CCMA?
Well, before coming to the CCMA, as I am having a law degree, I started as a prosecutor, and then I moved on to be a legal officer of a trade union called FAU. Then I was appointed as the CCMA commissioner.
Okay, and how long have you been with the CCMA?
It's approximately 7 years now with the CCMA.
Okay, we're just going to go to an ad break quickly, and we'll be back to chat to Vusumzi in a moment. Welcome back. My name is Cindy Pavasic, and you are watching Balance and Bounce. We are speaking today with Vusumzi from the CCMA, and we are talking about the rights of people living with HIV in the workplace. Welcome back, Vusumzi.
Thank you, Cindy.
I'd like to find out, the first thing that people always think is that they can get fired from their job because they are HIV positive. Is that an issue still in South Africa?
Well, it is still an issue, but it's not that prevalent. But you do get instances of people who come to us to say that they have been dismissed because of their HIV status, which is something that is totally unacceptable, and it is against the law.
And in those circumstances, when somebody does come to you, are they always correct that it was necessarily because of their HIV status, or is it sometimes the assumption that they've been ostracized and dismissed because of that situation?
Well, it's a bit of both. At times they do come and it's legitimately that they have been discriminated against, they have been dismissed because the management have come to know that they are HIV positive. But at times it becomes a perception to some.
So it's not always
the case. Yes.
Okay. And is an employee required to disclose their status when they are signed on for a job?
No, the employees are not obliged to disclose or to be tested for HIV when they seek employment or when they are employed. If the employer, for whatever reason, wants to test the employees, the employer has got to approach the labor court to get an order to do such a test.
Okay, so somebody won't be just discriminated against because of their HIV status and not be employed because they won't have a test.
Yes, they won't, because remember we've got a law that is called an Employment Equity Act, which among other things protects employees from being discriminated against because of their HIV status or for whatever other reasons that may be.
Okay, so there is leeway for people
very much so.
Okay, and an employer cannot insist in any case for a person to have an HIV test. And in this case, I'm talking about when it comes to heavy machinery that people may lose a limb or saws, we call it in the timber industry or something like that, where they are using heavy mechanics, they still can't insist in that case.
Yes, as I've said, they cannot. The only way through which the employer might have the right to do so is through approaching the labor court to get the necessary order from the court. They had to show to the court why it is important that it test its employees for HIV status.
Because I have found that people are almost reluctant in certain instances to apply for a job when they are HIV positive because of that fear of employees probably going to want to test them.
And if I may add more, the employer may not even ask during interview your HIV status. It's against the law. It amounts to unfair discrimination that such an employee can have a case at the CCMA against such employee.
Okay, that's interesting to know. And how does the law actually protect people who are HIV positive in the workplace?
Remember, employees either who are HIV or not, they have an inherent right not to be unfairly dismissed. So the law protects even employees who are HIV positive or HIV status. And if an employee who has been dismissed just because of his or her HIV status, such an employer has got a recourse to refer that dispute to the CCMA, and it is regarded as an automatic unfair dismissal. And the CCMA will try to conciliate it. If it's not resolved, it will have to go to labor court for adjudication. And the court might take a very dim view against such employers who dismiss employees simply because of their status.
Of their status. And have you had quite a number of these cases still, call it in this last year, that there are still instances? Because, I mean, we're in 2019 now. You'd think that employees are a little bit wary of implementing something like that.
Well, in as much as the country has moved in terms of its awareness to HIV status, to move against the stigma, but we still get some pockets of employers who still really do not understand that we are now in 2019, unfortunately. So we do get some pockets of such cases.
Okay, so they're not as fast and furious as they used to be in the 70s, 80s. So it's not as bad as it was then. And is there any form of compensation for somebody that is dismissed because of their HIV status?
Yes, remember as part of our law, we've got what is called Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act, which covers employees who are infected by any diseases, including HIV. So if it is proven that you had been infected by HIV through your occupation or through your work, and then you will be compensated accordingly. You will have to apply for such compensation.
Okay, wow. That is, I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't even understand that. And when it comes to somebody that is sick and missing work, I'm sure there's other laws that fit in when they're not capable any longer of doing their job properly, and then they do come to the CCMA because they've been fairly or unfairly dismissed depending on the way they see it. Is it also a difficult situation when it comes to something like that, because the person cannot put a full day's work in, and then surely the employee has
yes, remember, HIV status is also an illness. So like any other illness, it should be treated as such. So if an employee, for whatever reason, cannot perform his or her duties, the employer must engage on what is called incapacity proceedings to ascertain the extent on which it can assist the employee and accommodate such employee because of her status. Yes.
Wow. So that's I'm sure there's it's a very thin line when it comes to something like that. When a person reaches a certain stage of their health and wellness, that they have to take the proper procedures to remove them from the employment.
Yes, they have to. They have to go through a counseling session They must engage the employee to see how the employer can accommodate that person, whether there is an alternative position that can be accommodated in order for the work to do.
Thank you. Thank you. We're just going to go back to an ad break and we'll be back with you shortly. My name is Cindy Pavasic and you're watching Balance and Bounce. I am speaking to Vusi from the CCMA. And Vusi, just before the the ad break, we were chatting about compensation and so on. But what else I'd like to know is, can a doctor disclose your HIV status to your employer?
No, remember, in South Africa or in the world elsewhere, we've got what is called a doctor-patient confidentiality. That also extends to HIV status. Okay. So no doctor is allowed to disclose your or my HIV status without my express consent to that.
Okay. And then when there is a grievance procedure, when a person is dismissed, what is that grievance procedure for the employee?
Yes. The CCMA has developed what is called a code of good practice relating to HIV status, which we encourage every employer to have it in its workplace and every trade union to be familiarized with. Part of the thing that talks to is the grievances that needs to be followed with. But the grievances should be incorporated in the employer's disciplinary code. Okay. So it might not be different to any other, because if an employee has been dismissed for his or her HIV status, she might appeal if the company has got an appeal procedure in its disciplinary code. If it does not, she might take the matter straight to the CCMA, and she has 30 days to do so. From the date of dismissal.
From the date of dismissal. Okay, yes. 30 days. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize that there was such an extended time that they could do it. And then when it comes to, there's a specific law that protects people from when they're diagnosed with HIV to prevent all this. What is that specific law? Because I mean, people want to read up about things like this as well.
Yes, you will have your Employment Equity Act, which talks to that nobody should be discriminated against, and it lists the number of grounds that it is against to be discriminated with, and among those grounds, HIV status is also among those grounds.
Just going a little off track here, I find that companies are supposed to have an HIV policy in place, and I find because I interact with quite a lot of companies, corporates, I find very few of them have actually got a policy in place. It's not a law that they should have something like that in place, or is it?
Unfortunately, and I'm sure this is something that we need to consider going forward, because, for instance, the employers are compelled or are obliged to have the employment equity status and statistics in their workplace and plans. And one should ask why they are not compelled to also have HIV policy in the workplace. For now, we are encouraging them to do so. But I think, as you correctly have pointed out, we need to make sure that it's promulgated that every employer has got an HIV AIDS policy in its workplace. So that it doesn't fall prey.
Yeah, they've always got these rules and regulations stuck up on the wall, but there's no visual really for people to see what the policy is within their company when it comes to HIV and AIDS.
Yes, I agree, because currently what they are obliged to do is to put up the Basic Conditions of Employment Act in their walls and to put up their employment equity targets. But the law is silent as now in terms of they are also obliged to put the HIV status on their workboard. I think it's something that we should ponder and probably suggest through the NETLEC processes that it be considered.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. I like that. I really do.
Thank you.
And then who can a person contact if they don't go directly don't want to go, because people, for whatever reason, don't want to always go directly to the CCMA. Are there other alternatives for them to take the matter further if there isn't access to the CCMA for whatever reason? I mean, there's unions. Are there unions also involved in something like that?
Yes, what we always encourage as the CCMA is the internal dialogue,
Yes.
internal resolving of disputes. So remember, the HR officers of their employers have got a responsibility to take care of all employees.
Okay.
And they must maintain the level of confidentiality of whatever discussion that they might have. So the first point of call is that if an employee feels that some of the employees are discriminating against her or him because of them becoming known to his or her HIV status, we encourage that employees raise that internally with an HR personnel so that the issue could be resolved. But if it's not resolved, they can involve their trade unions to assist them in resolving their disputes. But failing which, then they must approach the CCMA so that the CCMA can intervene and resolve such issues.
And the CCMA themselves don't go on site or anything like that to discuss or to make people aware of their rights at all? You purely work from your offices?
No, we don't. We've got a dispute management department which has facilitated even this discussion with me and you.
Okay.
So we do, on invite, go to workplaces and make them aware of their rights and the employers' rights, including this aspect that we are discussing today.
That's very interesting, because I wasn't even aware that there was that facility available.
No, we do have it. We have an advocacy dealing with such issues.
And you deal around the whole of the Western Cape?
As the Western Cape, we deal with whole of the Western Cape. Where we got invited, we do come. And sometimes when the employers and employees come before us for a different dispute, but we pick up that this might be the cause of their antagonism, we then do suggest that to go to the workplace and carry over this kind of advocacies.
Okay, and the HR managers within the companies, get themselves updated on all the policies and procedures on a regular basis?
Yes, they're supposed to empower themselves. If not, as they do approach us as the CCMA for any kind of training that they would want us to do for them.
Okay, that's absolutely awesome. Well, I'm just totally gobsmacked at what is available to employees and employers for that matter. And I hope that this gives people a little bit more insight into what the CCMA does. And I thank you so much, Vusi, for coming on today. I mean, we've had an absolutely amazing chat, and I hope that we don't have to use the CCMA too much, and that people actually take notice of what is available and what is not. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again soon. You are watching Cindy on Balance and Bounce, and take care, and remember, HIV is not a shame.